So welcome everyone to this week's Blockchain Monday, our Blockchain Monday in April. And today we have two very special guests that will join us to have a great discussion. But before we jump into it, I want to quickly tell you a little bit about Aachen Blockchain Club for the people that don't know. So because we are the hosts and we are the student initiative at RWTH, which is focusing mainly on blockchain. And we try to be forward-thinking and dedicated on exploring all the potentials that blockchain and Web3 have to offer. So if that sounds interesting, I'm glad you're here and educating yourself on this exciting new technology. And down here, you can also see our patron on the top bottom right corner. It's Professor Piller. He's from the Time Institute. And he is part of our Aachen Blockchain Club. So at Aachen Blockchain Club, we have three main goals. First, we want to foster a community of students who are passionate about blockchain here at the RWTH. The second thing is we want to establish partnerships and connections with industry leaders in the blockchain space and the Web3 space. So for students to get first-hand experience with industry leaders and maybe hopefully make the transition from the lecture room into the working life as smooth as possible. And last but not least, the RWTH is a very big research institute or facility, and therefore we want to promote scientific development here at the university with all things blockchain. And we have a lot of upcoming cool events. Not only our discussion today, but next in 2 weeks, we have our own curated Merkle tree workshop, where you will learn everything about Merkle trees and how Merkle trees actually power a lot of blockchain we use. Then also we will visit a conference in May, and at the end of May, on the 27th of May, not November here, we will actually have Chainlink here to hold a workshop in person in Aachen. And if that sounds too technical, we always have our blockchain Stammtisch where you can come by and just have a drink and discuss and socialize with like-minded people. So if that sounds interesting, feel free to give us a follow on all our socials. We are mainly active pretty much on WhatsApp and LinkedIn. I think that's the best way. But through our link tree, you can find all our links. So without further ado, I want to now introduce our guest speakers, because we don't have just one guest speaker. We actually have two guest speakers, and that's very exciting. And so I want to start with Kristian. Kristian, you are one of the co-founders of NMKR, and you studied at the HHU Düsseldorf, so just around the corner from Aachen. And you're basically a serial entrepreneur, now starting or focusing on Newcast, which is basically building on top of NMKR, but I think we can have much more discussion later on. So welcome, Kristian. And then I also want to introduce Patrick. Patrick, you are also a co-founder of NMKR, and you have been at this game for 3 years already, which is quite some time, and been quite successful. I know you're based in Zurich, and you got a bachelor in computer science from the Hochschule der Medien in Stuttgart. And maybe that's the connection, how you guys met, because I feel like you're both somehow related to some media background, I feel like. But maybe you can tell us more. And now I would like to hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Lorenz, and hello, everyone. I think how we met is a beautiful story. But first of all, Patrick, where are you at the moment?
So thank you so much for having me. I'm not in Zurich at the moment. I'm in McKinney in Texas, because I'm actually here at the office of one of our best friends and customers with NMKR, book.io. They sell ebooks as NFTs, and they have really nice cushions and pillows here with a lot of different book titles. So I'm really jealous of this office actually.
Yeah, it's one of our most important and biggest partners. And what they do is revolutionizing the book industry with blockchain and NFTs, but we will do a deep dive later. We are not going to give a presentation. We would like to talk about how we met, how we scaled NMKR to 65 million US dollars in revenue, or more than 40,000 projects who are working with the NMKR Studio Suite. And yeah, Patrick, maybe we start with the very first question, and I think everyone is interested why we have picked Cardano as our very first blockchain.
Yeah, maybe I can dive in a little bit about what we actually do and how we got there and why on Cardano. So when we started, I was still in university. I was still studying computer science. I was actually writing my bachelor thesis about crypto as well, about Cardano specifically. And then we realized very quickly, okay, Cardano is a very different blockchain from all the other ones because it really focuses on the core of blockchain, on the core that Bitcoin also is focusing on, which is basically making the world a better place, leveling the playing field, having one system for everyone. And I think that was really interesting. Also, from a technical perspective, myself as a programmer, it was really interesting because it was very different than other blockchains, account based, but actually EUTXO based. So the same as Bitcoin, just with smart contracts attached. And then I decided to build NMaker, which was back then it was called NFT Maker, and it was a simple website where you could upload one image and get one NFT out. It was actually the first time that you could do anything with Cardano other than just staking your ADA or sending your ADA from A to B. So it was probably one of the first applications on there. And yeah, and then very quickly the community rallied around and they said, okay, we want to do more. We want to launch large collections. We want to, of course, have like collectibles, regular NFT stuff. But we very quickly realized that actually NFTs are a very powerful tool and they can be used for much more than just the next 10,000 ape pictures. They can be used for things like ebooks, right? Where you actually decentralize the ownership of an ebook and you actually bring back, ownership over digital items. And that's what we focused on. So we basically said, okay, we're going to build the infrastructure for these great companies like Book and like many others to build these innovative use cases that actually just bring actual users to the blockchain and not just focus on the same little bubble that everyone kind of seems to be focused on. And that's kind of how we got there. And I know this was a very long answer for your question, why Cardano, but I think a little bit of context probably makes sense.
100%. And I always like how you say we're deeply in love with Cardano, but we are blockchain agnostic. So that's our overall approach with NMaker. We make blockchain technology accessible so that other people can use our software as a service to access blockchain technology and build their business. And this was my background. I studied business administration and then I studied film in Munich. And I saw Patrick giving like his very first small pitch on a Cardano event called Cardano 360, talking about, hey, I've built this small tool, NFT Maker, and now you can mint NFTs. And it right away sparked my interest. And I called him, I think, 10 times, 15 times until you picked up the phone. And I said, yes, well, Patrick, you have the tech, I have the business. Let's start to work together.
I'm a millennial, so calling me doesn't work. Just a second.
You already mentioned, and this was like that was a downside for me when I saw that people are using our tech to mint all those ape pictures and rhinos, etc., etc. So talking about real world use cases, Patrick, what sparks your interest at the moment the most? So where do you see like the future or the next big thing with blockchain and especially with NFT technology?
So I think it's very easy to kind of categorize the evolution of NFTs or tokens in general into three categories. The first one is basically the purely like blockchain digital kind of stuff. So these are like Bored Apes, collectibles, things like that. The second phase is all the like digital media. So books, movies, music, everything where you can basically right now access it already, but you always have to go through a third party like Kindle or Spotify, and you never really actually own the media that you're consuming. And I think that's already happening right now. I mean, I'm here, and they have like this nice little counter up front, how many books they sold. It's like I think 300,000 or so. So it's really growing a lot. And then the third part, the third phase, or whatever you want to call it, for me is basically this connection between the physical world and the blockchain. So basically everything that's kind of physical right now, and then you have a connection, and then you make it more tradable and more usable by putting it on the blockchain. And I think that's also happening right now with real estate and with stocks and many other things that we're taking and basically tokenizing. So that's kind of the new buzzword, real world assets.
And if I would start a project today in one of those three categories, I could use NMKR, right?
Sure, absolutely. That's what it's built for.
So what's very interesting from my point of view is especially area number 2 at the moment. And Lorenz, you already mentioned Newcast, and Patrick is visiting our teams and friends at Book.io. Those are the use cases where like books and films and music hit blockchain technology, and they really have a benefit by doing it and by using it, right? And one of the biggest benefits they have, or people as a creatives, artists have, is the royalty structure. So if you have a movie and you launch it on Newcast nowadays, you will sell NFTs, and I'm as an end consumer, I buy one of your NFTs, like I bought a DVD or Blu-ray back in the days. And then I truly have the ownership, right? With Netflix and Amazon Prime and all the other streaming services, you never have true ownership. You're always reliant on those big tech companies. So with NFTs and the movie as an NFT, I have access to the movie, so I have true ownership, and I can enforce that by not only watching the movie, I can resell the movie to someone else. And I don't have to know who it is who's buying it. It can be someone from Japan or from Argentina, and this person can buy the movie from me. So the cool thing for the artist is the royalty structure, as mentioned before, because the artist gets, for example, 5% or 10% of this secondary markets every time an NFT is sold. And now we're not talking about apes anymore. We're talking about movies and books. And this is something what is very, very appealing to artists in every kind of area, that they don't get this total buyout once, but they get like a royalty structure in place so they can benefit from past successes that they had. And this is something where I say, yes, it totally makes sense to build those kind of business cases by utilizing NMKR technology. Patrick, talking about that, what do you think about, for example, ticketing on the blockchain?
So I think ticketing is a very great and very easy to understand example of where NFTs actually make sense, or crypto in general makes sense, because right now ticketing is done in a very centralized way. It's very controlled by a few big monopolies. In Germany, Eventbrite. In other countries, it's Ticketmaster, and it's extremely hard as an independent artist to go through there, because you have to give away a lot of your revenue to these platforms, and you have to basically rely on them. You don't really have a way of doing anything without them. And the same, of course, for the people who are actually using and buying the tickets. If you buy a ticket right now, you cannot easily just transfer it over to someone else. It's just not made for that, right? And it's very clear that all the artists, they don't want this to happen. They don't want a black market for the tickets to exist. But if you introduce a royalty structure into those tickets, then potentially it makes sense, because then the artist can make more money if they sell a ticket, and then the tickets get traded, and potentially even traded after the show is already over, because they are unique and they have collectible status. and maybe you attach some stuff to it, maybe access to your newest song or something like that. So there's a lot of like potential with tickets, but as I said, it's extremely monopolized right now. So it's also extremely difficult to get into the ticketing market, especially in, you know, countries like Germany or the US. So yeah, it's one of these things that I think will happen eventually, but it's gonna take time.
And again, we are already offering the tech at NMKR, right? So artists can use our technology and get in touch with us to get this structure in place and start selling their tickets on their own website with the royalty structure in place. And we have a very first tech question here regarding the enforcement of the royalties, whether or not they are enforced on the smart contract level or just the metadata field that marketplaces follow.
That's a good question. It depends on the blockchain and it depends on the type of NFT that you're minting. So on Cardano, we actually don't use smart contracts for NFTs. We use native tokens. And there it is in most cases so that it's only a metadata field. But there are also certain ways where you can basically restrict it and you can say, okay, we want to enforce it. I think the big advantage by not restricting it is that you can have those NFTs more interoperable with other protocols. So right now, if I mint an NFT on Cardano, it's basically treated the exact same way as the base currency, which is ADA, of course. And I can basically use it in any DEX, in any smart contract, in any lending protocol, whatever you like. And it's extremely interoperable. If I now basically say, okay, this can only be transferred if you pay the royalty for it, then it becomes very difficult and it's not as interoperable anymore. And then you need to basically specify every single like case where you would like to say, okay, I want to have this supported in this certain smart contract, and because of that, there's an exception, and then it just becomes too complex to be really usable in the long term. So I'm actually a big fan of not enforcing the royalties and just putting them in the smart contracts.
And talking about native tokens, how exactly does it work with NMKR Studio? So as a consumer, when do I have to pay something? How does it work from a tech point of view when people start minting my NFTs?
Mm-hmm. So it's so we see NMKR Studio basically as the underlying infrastructure that you can use to mint NFTs and tokens and whatever you like, and then sell them on your own platform. So we are not trying to be a launchpad. We're more like an API and no-code tool that you can just use and implement, and create your own experience around. And the cool thing about that is there's like no entry barrier. You can just literally register, sign up for free, upload a bunch of images or videos or whatever you like, and then start a sale. And then when you sell the first NFT or token, then that's the first time you actually have to pay something for us, and we automatically just take a 3% charge based on every transaction. But I think I really like this approach because the idea is to, you know, empower everyone to mint as many NFTs as possible without them having to pay much, instead of charging any upfront fee or so. So yeah.
And from a startup business point of view, you can imagine that those discussions were quite hard with venture capital firms, telling them, no, we don't aim for subscription. We want to make it accessible as possible for everyone on this planet to start their business using blockchain technology. And we have stick to that. I hope we will. And I hope that blockchain cases will pick up again, especially in those areas Patrick mentioned before, because then we have real world use cases. And talking about real world use cases, Patrick, I think it makes sense that we talk about Finest and the tokenization of real world assets. So what are we cooking over there?
Yeah, so what we're doing right now is, as I mentioned, you know, the three phases. We're focused a lot recently on phase number 3. And we're saying, okay, we have NMKR, we have the infrastructure, we can mint whatever we like, basically. now let's build something on top of NMaker. Let's build an actual launchpad, and let's do it for securities and for real world assets. So basically really saying, okay, we're going to take a real estate object in Düsseldorf is probably the first one, and put it on the blockchain, fractionalize it, and just make it accessible. And then suddenly, you know, we're not talking about meme coins anymore or random like entertainment stuff, but we're talking about really big financial assets. And the second thing we'll be tokenizing is stocks. And Finest is basically using NMaker technology in the background, but it's a launchpad designed to be as easily accessible for everyone as possible. So like my mom should be able to register and just use it, and that's it. And it's obviously it's a very complex topic, especially from a legal perspective. So we're talking a lot with lawyers. We're figuring out a strategy and how to do this all, or we actually have already figured it out. So it's going to be completely compliant and secure in Germany and in the EU. And I think it's really going to change how people interact with the blockchain, because in the end, I just want to have a wallet, and I want to have all of my investments in there. I want to have the books that I read in there, but I also want to have, I don't know, my stocks in there. I want to have my ETFs in there. I want to have fractions of the real estate that I own in there. And I want to potentially have, you know, other coins in there from blockchain projects. So, so everything in one place and everything interoperable with each other, and then having these protocols where I can just use it with DeFi and lend it out and stuff like that. And that's, I think that's where the future that we are going towards. And I think it's very exciting actually. So it's really cool.
And having all those amazing people in this call here, what would you say if you were not part of NMaker at the moment? What would you recommend to build right now on top of NMaker to not only be successful, but to really, really utilize blockchain in an interesting way?
That's a really good question. I mean, there are so many things you can build. There's so many things. I think one of the I don't have any, you know, a specific example, but I always would go with the approach of actually looking at a problem and trying to solve that problem, and then figuring out if blockchain is the right solution for it. Because too many companies make the mistake of just saying, okay, we want to be a blockchain project, we build some random solution, and it doesn't really matter if there's really blockchain in there from a user perspective or not. But if you like, you need to go from the problem first and from the solution first, and not the technology first. So yeah, that's kind of how I would look at it.
I couldn't agree more. And I gave a keynote at the Berlinale Film Festival, and there were like 500 people in the room, and I asked them, who in this room can explain to me how the tech behind Netflix is working? And no one could. But everyone is talking about blockchain and NFTs, so the tech part of things, right? If you're launching a new business, or a lot of them are doing it. And this is what I recommend everyone who has an idea and who does exactly what Patrick just mentioned, focusing on the end consumer's problem, and then utilize the tech and blockchain tech and NFT technology to solve this problem without always talking about, yes, this is a cool project because it's blockchain based. Use the tech and build the business on top of it. And I think, yeah, now we have talked a lot, and you know, very open to hear more from your side. And yeah, I would love to ask, what kind of questions do you have? You can put it in the chat, or you can just jump in. I think this is a small round of people, so feel free to just catch the mic.
Yeah, just raise your hand if you want to ask the question. I think that's maybe the easiest. Yeah, I have a question. I remember at the beginning you said it's better for the artists if you own the book and then be able to resell it, basically. But I feel like, isn't the trend for consumerism going towards rather just renting it? Or what is the incentive for people to really buy a book and then resell it? Because I feel like everyone is moving towards the rental system. And I guess that is just the cheaper option. Or is there more benefits to buying on the blockchain?
That's a very good question. And that's the only, I think that's like the question that I ask myself too. Because the reality is I own, Kindle Unlimited, I own Spotify, or I pay for Spotify Premium, and I pay for YouTube Premium even, and stuff like that. Netflix and Amazon Prime. I have like 20 subscriptions, it feels like. And then I look at, kind of the world around me, and I see that people do really like still to own stuff. And I do like to own stuff. I also collect books physical and put them into my shelf and have them there. And it's like the core question in crypto, right? Do people want to have ownership, or do they not want to have ownership? If they don't want to have ownership, then what are we even doing with crypto in general? Then it's all pointless, because then in the end there's just going to be a bunch of like super mega corporations that will give you everything for free basically, and you just work and then get all the consumerism for free or for a very cheap price in the long term. But and it might very well be that this is the future, because now with AI even content generation is becoming so cheap and so quick that the trend towards zero in terms of price is really accelerating. And I don't know if that's the future we will have, but I do know that there are still a lot of people that believe in true ownership and that want to own their stuff. And that's like the base foundation, I think, that every crypto business in the world is building upon. And maybe all of the crypto businesses in the world are completely wrong. Who knows? But yeah, that's basically my answer to it.
And to add to this, maybe Lorenz, maybe you're right. Maybe people will only rent in the future and use it the way as suppose you do at the moment. But why shouldn't we tokenize Google? Why shouldn't we tokenize Spotify and put it in the hands of millions, right? So you don't have to do the ownership at the front. You can even do it at the back. And I think this is even more needed to decentralize wealth and to decentralize ownership of companies overall. Mohammed, yes.
Aren't like Google and Netflix already tokenized? They have like stocks on the stock market.
So you could say that, but the thing is, the stock market itself is still a very centralized entity, and it's basically a business in itself that wants to generate money, and it's also not very accessible. And there's many different parties that you have to go through in order to buy a stock, because like you cannot just walk up into the actual stock market and say, okay, I want to have a stock. You have to go to a broker, and then the broker charges a fee and stuff like that. So and also it's only working with really large corporations, of course. I think the interesting part about tokenizing is two things mainly. It's first that it's completely global and accessible to everyone with basically no entry barrier, right? So I could buy stocks from a company in India, even though I can't today as a German citizen, at least not that easily. And the second thing is also it's making capital allocation more accessible for like smaller companies. So we're a startup, we're not on the stock market right now, but if we were to tokenize the shares of NMKR, of the company behind NMKR, then anyone can buy it and people can invest into the actual company without having to go through us, without having to sign like some sort of investment agreement or stuff like that. So it's making this a lot more easily accessible, which I think is great, because right now investing into startups is reserved only for the rich that can write like 50K plus checks as angel investors. And in the future, hopefully everyone can participate.
Sorry, but I mean, I don't think that the problem right now with accessibility is a technology problem. I mean, whatever like thing that you can build with a blockchain, you can also build in a normal, say like a centralized server, right? You just keep track of things in a, say like government database or whatever. But it's more of a legal problem. Like, for example, you have this accredited investor thing to protect people from fraud, right? It's if you just open the stock market to all of the small companies, then you will have the same amount of scams that you have in crypto right now. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
I mean, it depends, because like the thing is, it's easy to say that for one country. It's easy to say that for a stable country. It becomes very different when you're talking about cross-border stuff. Because, you know, as I said, as a German, I literally cannot invest into the stock market in India right now without having to go through a whole process, basically. And if I put that on the blockchain, you know, it kind of removes this whole problem, because it's on there and it's decentralized and no one can really control it. And there's still laws, you know, to follow, of course, because there's like there's probably laws where if I can actually be entered into the share registry by name in certain countries, and I need to be an accredited investor in the US if I want to buy stocks and stuff like that. But at least in theory, it makes all of these different things interoperable with each other. And right now, you know, there's one database basically in Stuttgart for the Börse Stuttgart, and then there's another one in New York for the stock exchange there. And it's all different like systems that are not really working together, and they're just being bundled together by another centralized entity, which is, for example, eToro, which, and eToro in the background is probably using a broker, because I think they're not a broker themselves. And then so there's like a lot of different steps to basically put it all onto one app. And I think you can basically remove all of these 3 or 4 steps, all of them, by just putting it on the blockchain, tokenizing it, and then it's immediately accessible and there's no one in the middle. So I do think it's a little bit of a technology problem, but of course it's also, you know, it's also a legal topic. Like you could probably also just create like a centralized service where you can sell fractions of a GmbH in Germany or so. But do you really want to? It doesn't really make sense to create a new platform which is centralized, where you buy like shares of a smaller company. You can, if you have the ability to just also do the exact same thing and do it without this platform. It was a very weird explanation. Sorry for that. Took a lot of turns, but I hope you understood my point.
No, all good. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from the audience? Feel free to also just type it in the chat if you feel a little bit more introverted. But yeah, I think when I first saw NMKR, it kind of reminded me of the recent hype of that I saw recently of, I don't know if you heard, Pump.fun, the launch pool for meme coins, which was basically
Pump.fun.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen it.
Yeah, and I think they went through the media because I think within 4 months they had, I don't know, made annual revenue of over $100 million or something, just by being a platform for launching meme coins on, I think, Blast or Base or something. Yeah, so have you ever considered switching chains, or are you true to Cardano?
I personally love Cardano. I think it's the best chain out there at the moment. But obviously, you know, we have to go a little bit with the market. We have to see, okay, where's most of the demand. So we are integrating other chains, and we will do so in a very unique way. So we basically will allow the user to select the chain where he wants to have his NFT, and then combine them on our side, and basically make sure that you know, if there's 1,000 NFTs available, that none of them are minted on Cardano and Polygon, for example, at the same time. So we basically introduce a bridging system, but on the minting level. And the next one is going to be Solana. So that's what we're working on right now. But yeah, it's not there yet, and we'll see how it goes in the end. But you know, I would, if I were to start a new project, I would always start it on Cardano again, because I simply think that it's a great blockchain, very underused, very big community actually, and yeah, and a lot of opportunities there that maybe on other blockchains aren't as prominent, in my opinion, at least.
And at the same time, not every business idea with NFTs involving NFTs is a good fit for Cardano. That's why we decided to open up and implement more blockchains who are offering, especially those who are offering things that Cardano can't do at the moment or won't do anytime soon.
Exactly, very important point, because you know, some blockchains are super fast, but not very decentralized, and then other blockchains are more focusing on decentralization and are a little bit slower, like Cardano. So it's like you have to always think about which blockchain makes sense for which use case.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, yeah. But I guess one other question, I think maybe for people that are thinking of starting their own protocol in the future or something, what do you suggest? Do you suggest, I mean, you pretty much started on Cardano when there was probably almost nothing to do, really, like you said. And back 3 years ago, you basically had the option to either start this on Cardano or maybe on Ethereum, where maybe some more activity was on. What is your experience between choosing as a new developer? Okay, should I choose more of a chain that already has users, or should I really go to the new forefront of, I don't know, a chain that has nothing built up and build there? What do you see as pro and cons? And if you would start over, would you do the same to go to a new chain?
So if I would start over, I think I wouldn't start a company. I would just buy like a bunch of meme coins and make money that way. But no, if we're serious, I think I would again start on Cardano, and I would, like, a reason from a business perspective why to start on Cardano back then was basically we looked at the chain, and we said, okay, there's a lot of users here, which you can clearly see by the community on Twitter, Discord, and everywhere. There's a lot of users, and there's no applications. So whatever we launch, we're gonna be the first ones and the only ones, and then we're gonna get all of these users. And if we launched NMKR back in the day on ETH or on any other chain where there's already competition, like on Solana, there's Metaplex, for example, we would have had no chance, or at least it would be a lot more difficult to reach anyone. And that's kind of how I saw it back in the day, and it really worked out, because right now, you know, we are the Metaplex of Cardano. We are the biggest minting platform of Cardano. And now if we move to another chain, we can do so with much more like pressure than we could have done if we just launched on a bigger chain from the get-go, because we can already say, okay, look, we have this amazing tool. We're now bringing it over. We already have users. And we already have like a marketing presence and stuff like that. So I think it was a really smart move actually to launch it the way we did. And there's always like considerations. Is the blockchain big enough? Is the user base big enough? There are some other ones like that have basically 0 users, are great chains, where maybe wouldn't have made that much sense. For example, Algorand, great blockchain, great technology, but basically 0 users. So does it really make sense to launch there right now? Probably not. So yeah.
And to add to this, the business opportunity. What's the pain point for the end consumer? That's something what Patrick mentioned. There was nothing you could use, and there were like hundreds of thousands of people who wanted to do something on Cardano, right? And this is a business opportunity. So the tech is the one side of the coin and the business is the other side. So always have a deep look into and do your research in regards to, oh, is there a business offering what I would like to build on this chain? And if not, is there a community who would be interested in that? And if yes, then that's the right chain for you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that sounds very logical. But would you say that has changed now, that maybe you focus more on the actual use case, that now you're trying to bring people that are more book lovers maybe to Cardano rather than catering to the Cardano community?
For sure, that has changed drastically. At the beginning, the target group was the Cardano community. Now it is businesses that want to launch NFTs or tokens and want to build actual use cases. And of course, it's always kind of connected to the Cardano community because it's often the first step. But it's very clear if you want to scale to, you know, hundreds of millions of books being sold on the blockchain, we cannot target the Cardano community. No one cares about Cardano in the real world, right? So we need to target, you know, the parents and the older people and everyone who has nothing to do with crypto and who just want to buy a book and read it.
And saying that, making blockchain technology as accessible as possible for everyone, right? The best case scenario would be they don't even know they're using blockchain technology, but they're using it to do their everyday digital life.
So, I mean, you're talking about abstracting away all the wallets, the blah, the which chain, the gas fees, I guess. How do you see that being done? Do you see that on a wallet level? Do you see that through the actual app level? Because I mean, Coinbase launched their recent embedded wallet, they call it, right? I think that's a very interesting concept of kind of abstracting away the gas fees and all the other stuff that is complicated for new users. But then again, there's also the account abstraction party, right? They are trying to just get rid of everything and just have an email, basically. How do you see that? Which way do you prefer? Pros and cons?
So I think there's a lot of good approaches. I don't know which one is the best at the moment, but I do think that there's a lot of like smart solutions with like Web3 auth, for example, where you basically say, okay, you can log in with your social accounts and we still create a non-custodial wallet for you, but we split up the key into multiple parts and we store one as a password, one on your device and one basically on your social account, and then you need to combine it to get access to the wallet, because then no one even knows that there's a wallet behind. And that's really cool. That's what we're doing with Finest as well. And then, you know, if you want to basically hide the whole gas fees and stuff, I think that's more of an application layer type of thing, or it depends, I guess. There's multiple solutions to it, but the way we've done it in the past is that we just said, okay, we're going to pay the gas fees. The users, they just, you know, top up their account basically by doing a transfer from their bank account or something like that. And then they just see, they don't even see USDC, they see USD, and then they can just pay with those USD. So it's very similar to how you know, all these trading apps like Robinhood and so on work. You create the account, you top it up with your bank account, and then you can just spend the dollars in your account basically, and then you never see that there's a wallet behind the scenes. You never see that there's any gas fees behind the scenes. It just happens, and that's kind of where we have to get. And I think with the current tools, you can already do so. yeah, and if that's better than what Coinbase is doing or not, I really I really don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting space to follow. Let's see what way will win, because I feel like there's one way that will just be the way every user, every newcomer will be onboarded, but it's not certain which way. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience? I guess that's not the case. Maybe Patrick and Kristian, if somebody here in the audience has a question or is inspired by your project or wants to reach out, what is the best way to reach you guys?
I think Patrick will put in the email address to reach out via email. We will celebrate a wonderful hackathon here in Berlin, in-person hackathon, end of July. So if someone would like to come to the capital and do 2 days hackathon with us, you're more than welcome to apply. And besides that, it's always good to reach out via Twitter. If you have like a small question, then that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, I think the hackathon always sounds interesting. I know we have a bunch of people that are they love the hackathons, so maybe if you guys are interested, apply. I see it's a Cardano hackathon, or is it an NMKR hackathon?
It's a Cardano hackathon. So not only NMKR, but like the whole Cardano ecosystem just organized by us.
Okay, awesome. Very nice. Giving back to the community, that's always good. Okay,
Exactly.
yeah, I guess then I would say we just end it here if there's no other questions. I'm very thankful for you two to come on today to take our tough questions and tell us a little bit about your entrepreneur story. I think you're at the forefront of all of this, and I think you're really pushing people to try out new things on chain, and I think that's amazing. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and good luck to the future of NMKR.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.